Well, Keir Starmer's had to reshuffle his cabinet after the unfortunate matter of Angela Rayner. And I thought it's an opportunity to look back over the last 14 months where he's been quite unfortunate for a stable government. He's lost quite a few of his original cabinet, and there's probably some more he'd like to lose. He's lost his housing minister over tax affairs around housing. He lost Rashana Ali, the homelessness minister. She had to resign when she was making people homeless for her personal profit. Vicky Foxcroft, well, the Labour whip wasn't happy with his policies on welfare. She's a point of principle departure. Don't get many of those these days, do we? Annalise Dodds. Well, it's fair that the International Development Minister might feel aggrieved when they cut the international development budget. Yet another point of principle resignation. Andrew Gwynn was a bit more unfortunate, a health minister who was discovered to have hoped that some of his constituents would die. That's not normally how healthcare is supposed to work. Tulip Sadiq, the anti-corruption minister, well, there's nothing either way, but there's a lot of claims that she was more corruption than anti-corruption and had too much appearance of financial difficulties and ambiguities around the ownership of her property, which, when a watchdog looked into it, couldn't actually figure out who owned it or how it was possible for so many family members to have so many different versions of how it was owned. They live a complicated lives. These aren't people like you and me. These are exciting jet setters, the Labour cabinet. And then obviously Louise Haigh, who apparently wasn't transparent, is how they say Keir Starmer felt about that, even though she did tell him she had a fraud conviction. So, quite how she wasn't transparent. But with Angela Rayner going, Keir Starmer was in a bit of a pickle. He had to reshuffle his deck, and this is where you have to feel sorry for him when you look at his cabinet. Although, if you look on Wikipedia, it makes a big deal about how amazing it is how many women are in the cabinet. But whilst it's wonderful there are a lot of women in the cabinet, probably one of the main qualifications for being cabinet should be competence, ability, and knowledge of your portfolio. And that's where he's struggled a little bit, and it's not a female thing. I'd say you could argue some of the men in his cabinet struggle with their competence of portfolio. But Rachel from accounts, don't worry, she's still got a job running the economy into the ground. Probably the worst chancellor we've had in the last 30 years. And she's going to stick around for longer. She hasn't finished the job yet. She invented a new form of economics, and she has to destroy the country to prove that it works. And it would also look very bad for Keir if his chancellor left. So she's still around. Well, David Lammy, the ex-TV mastermind participant, and very observant in his last role in the Home Office, Shadow Home Office, he couldn't find any policemen when they were standing next to him. Don't worry, he'll find them this time and they'll come to him. Well, he's looked a little awkward the last few months when he can't really leave the country without the Prime Minister holding his hands, which isn't traditionally part of the Foreign Minister remit. Normally they're allowed to go on their own, and the Prime Minister only goes when there's a bit of glory knocking around. Well, he shuffled over and had a bit of a backhand bonus so that he would say he hasn't lost out and looks pretty chipper about it. Fresh from smashing the gangs, Yvette Cooper's moving over from the Home Office. Job done. Now she's off to Foreign Office. So kind of a shuffling of the deck, a shuffling of the deck chairs on the Titanic in terms of the key figures. The new Home Office appointment's an interesting one. Shabana Mahmood moves from Secretary of State for Justice, Lord Chancellor, through to Secretary of State for Home Department, so Home Office Minister. And she, in fairness, actually seems to plan to do something in that she certainly said a few things the first week that suggest she's planning to do some work. And for that, I'd give her a grace period that maybe she's actually going to be good at the job. We haven't had a good Home Secretary in a very long time, and I've long thought that it can't just be bad fortune that Home Secretaries fail to deliver on any of their promises for multiple decades at a time, and possibly the problem is the department itself. Either that or the last dozen Home Secretaries have been failures. I'd love to see her succeed, and I wish her all the best in her new role. What I really found interesting about this reshuffle was firstly how bad the options are for the key players. Secondly, a lot of old faces out, new faces in. So it's first time that 2024 intake of MPs becomes the largest group in the government. So MPs who have more than 1 year's experience are now the minority in Keir Starmer's government. Anyone could be excused for thinking that he liked MPs that are subservient to him or bendable to his will. Yet at the same time, there are now less ministers in the Lords than there were before. And you might think, well, why does that matter? Well, the ministers in the Lords aren't there to be MPs. The ministers of the Lords are to help shepherd legislation through the Lords. And there's only 4 of them, and now there's only 3. So I guess either Keir doesn't think that the House of Lords will oppose a Labour Prime Minister, which may well be true, or he's curtailing his ambition for how much change is actually going to be delivered. In fact, the Mission Delivery Unit in the Cabinet Office was abolished as part of this reshuffle. So maybe there's a curtailing of change to match the curtailing of growth that's been delivered by Rachel from account. Either way, if you're worried about your job, the taxes you're going to pay, or how you're going to pay your energy bills, don't worry, there's no change there. Rachel from accounts is still knocking around, saying and in every sentence. And Miliband's there to make sure that we all go bankrupt over our energy bills. It's a subject for another video, but Keir Starmer needs to do something to turn the ship around before his MPs throw the captain overside. And I don't really see how this reshuffle addresses the core problems facing his government when they go to the country again. And you may say, well, he's got 4 years, but at some point you have to turn the boat around if you actually want to win the next election. And all those MPs who are worried about who's going to pay their mortgage after the next election must already be wondering when he's going to deliver some positive change.